So, hello everybody. I stayed up till 2 o'clock last night with that video until I finished all the details. So today I'm a bit tired, but since I'm so excited to see you, hopefully I'll overcome it. Oh boy. So, who do we have here? Hello, Meyer. Sonke, of course. Agafia. Amani. Manuela. Linda. Sami. R. Jones. And of course, Shlomo. Yeah, I'm here too. All right. So, I don't know how many of you actually watched... Yes, Mark. I don't know how many of you actually watched the video I posted. Actually, it was this morning, if I think about it. But today I wanted to talk about a few things. And of course, then talk with you and your questions. But as I posted there, I want to talk for a short while about the evolution of God, because I think it's very important to understand that. And I also want you to know, I will probably do a follow-up video on the one last night, just because there is lots of feedback coming in, and I'm going to put all this, again, all this knowledge that you bring in, because it's not really a one-man solution, and then repackage it and bring it back in another video. And I also want you to realize something that I am pretty sure you didn't realize. Bring you back to the big picture here. And what it is that, I am here to change the world. If anybody forgot, I'm not here to give you entertainment, even though I do, right? And entertain myself, and it's all great fun. But really my goal, why I got into all this and why I spend all this time and effort and doing this, is because I believe that I can change the world. And as I mentioned, in the past, the world is, because of what it is, because of the people. The people in the world make this reality, make this world. So if you want to change it, you have to deal with the people. You cannot change it by changing anything physical here. I mean, you can kill everybody, but that doesn't change the world. So the counter argument here, and those are all arguments I make, is that people don't change. They receive that personality that I talked about in that grand lottery in the sky, and this is it. And very few can change that, right? Of course, unless they come and talk to me. Yeah. So how do you change the world? Well, you change it by what people desire. Because as soon as you can change what people desire, then within one day you change the world. Because if everybody is going to be looking for onions tomorrow morning, instead of gold and high-tech shares that go up very quickly and big money and private jets and so on, if they looked for onions from tomorrow morning, because onion would be the most precious thing in this world, because if anybody that doesn't eat 2 onions a day is going to die, okay? Boy, you will have a change, right? Reality will change completely. You will see all these people that right now go with this fancy briefcases, €1,000 briefcase go, like I mentioned to Sabrina last in our conversation. She's from Switzerland, and they go in the morning to the bank with this little briefcase that they spent thousands of euros to buy, and they have this suit, and they are the symbol of success. But if onion would become the thing, right, and you needed 2 onions every day to survive, and all of a sudden they would become scarce, then guess what? What would happen with those people? Right? They would change. Reality would change. They would not go to the bank anymore with that briefcase. They would be running looking for onions. Anyway, you get my point. So coming back here, by developing and showing you how to actually use the power that you received from God and you are not aware of, when you start to be aware of it, you will change the world. Because this is the same like the onions. You will start running after that. And all the mundane stuff that you are running after today will not have any importance. Your desires will change. So this is part of the process. So I'm not doing it just to show you how to manifest a partner or anything like that. It's actually, I'm advancing my goal that way. I just want you to understand so you know what I'm doing and why. And I think that the group that we have here, you are the right people to actually to understand it and start moving it, and it will become just like the COVID, but in a positive way. It will spread. All right. So one thing I forgot to mention yesterday in the video, and it's very, very important, is the phenomenon called entanglement. I think I mentioned that in the previous live video, but for some reason I omitted it last night. Maybe it was too late. And what it is really is when two particles, they could be electrons, they could be any particles, get entangled, and the process of, let me just center myself here, there we go. The process of entanglement can happen in a lab or in nature. And what it does, as you see here in this picture, it takes two particles and it kind of makes them into family. They are entangled forever. And what that means that if one, I'll take this funny picture here, if one is smiling, the other one has to cry. And if the other one is crying, this one has to smile. They can never smile at the same time or cry at the same time, okay? Scientifically, it has other names, but, to get the point, this is good. So why is it so crazy and strange? And actually, is disproving Einstein's theory of relativity. This phenomenon disproves Einstein's theory of relativity. And it basically disproves everything we know about science. Because what happens here is those two particles, like I said, if you make one cry, the other one is forced to smile. But if the other one is on the other side of the universe, say 1 trillion light years away, it happens instantaneously. Meaning that there is no limit of speed of light, which is the foundation of today's science. So that denies everything. It basically, disproves everything. And it's a fact that happens. This is not some kind of a theory. This is a fact. This was tested many times. So why am I bringing this up here? Because, let me come back to myself here, because what I was trying to show you yesterday in the video is that all is one. And you have to really not understand it, but know it. Because in order for you to be able to manifest anything, you have to understand that one fact, that everything is one. That will give you the power and the ability and the belief that you can actually do it. And this phenomenon is extremely important to forward that message that all is one, because that's the only way this can happen, right? It has to be all one. Because if it's not all one, how the hell does it get to the other side of the universe in no time? All right. So, evolution of God. Why do I want to talk about that? You see, in religion's terms, right? God is the omnipotent and knows everything, and the all-loving God, and so on and so on and so on. It's basically is infinite in everything. But if that was the case, you and I wouldn't be here, because it wouldn't need us. So the fact that this reality exists, provided you believe that there is such a thing as God and all that, but this is all my personal opinions, and this is what I'm going to tell you. So the reason we are all here, and the reason this reality is here, is because God needed something. He didn't have everything. If he had everything, like I said, we wouldn't be here. wouldn't be talking right now. So God needed this whole thing to experience a reality with other intelligent and conscious, entities, which is us, because only that way you can create experiences that cannot be created by one consciousness. There's no way. And what happened, you see, we have what we call evolution here, right? And evolution is real because everything evolves, right? Nothing stays in one place, and things change, and they usually change in a certain direction, towards chaos or but evolution exists. And what that also means that emotional, spiritual evolution also happens all the time. So God coming into this as one consciousness and then experiencing this thing with many consciousnesses that are loving, are hating, and go through crisis, and go to extreme emotional experiences when somebody dies, or when somebody is sick, or when we have the war or the Holocaust or whatever. All these things create very, very extreme, I don't want to call it energy, but very extreme emotional, it's not energy because energy is matter, but emotional experiences. And God, being the one that lives through it with us, is changing as well. So when God came into that, and you can see it actually in the Old Testament, in the Torah, God is very crude. Like in the commandments that like I said yesterday, there's 613 commandments in the Torah. And in some of them, he says to the parents, he says, look, if your son is at the age of maturity, whatever that age was at that time, I don't know, 16 or whatever, and he's behaving, doesn't listen to you, and all he wants to do is eat and drink and have fun, you should take him out, and he should be stoned. And it's saying that just in a very dry way. It's also saying if somebody, pokes your eyes, we need to poke his eye, and so on and so on. And this is real. This is all saying, and this is not. You cannot say that this is a God that's all loving and understands the feelings of parents towards their son, right? But the God today is different. It's not the same God because he went through this journey with us, and God changed. Today you do have a loving God, the one that, religions were describing thousands of years ago. It actually happened now because it needed that evolution to get there. And that's actually the reason why reality is going to change very, very drastically now. That's why we are going into a totally different phase because of that. You see, because all this consciousness here, we basically represent the consciousness of God. So if we change and God changes, then reality will change. How it will change? It will happen through nature, like everything else, but it will change. So that's the part I wanted to talk about, the evolution of God. So it's not a static thing. There are some questions here, and I actually want to answer them because that will give us some good content here. So Mark actually sent me a question this morning. He says, Shlomo, if you get this, my mother died when I was 7. Did she manifest her own death? If not, how does the death of one's parents work for young children? This relates to what I just said before. This is part of the experiences that we go through to create that very, very powerful energy. Well, I'll call it energy because I don't have any other word for it. To basically evolve emotionally. This is what happens. And the same as birth and the character, like I say, comes from a lottery, death also comes from a lottery. Except because when you are born, you don't exist yet. So you don't have any influence on it. I know some people believe that you go and sign some kind of a contract with the lawyer in the sky, like what you want to be. But I don't buy into that. So, but when you are already alive, then death is influenced by you. And what it means is that, like the reality, the way it works, it's like a program. When you put a certain input into it, you get a certain output of it. It also has preference for people and actions that actually do what God wanted this reality to be all about. So if you create more experiences, you are more adventurous, you change things all the time, and you explore, and you are a creative person, then again, God doesn't come and say, oh, you are very creative, I'll give you 2 more years. It doesn't work like that. But the system, the way it's built, is going to give you a preference. Okay? So you may actually be saved from something that came randomly to kill you, but the system, will override it. The other thing is that, and this we all know, is that your emotional behavior affects your health. Like we discussed that many times, right? That your consciousness, when it's not happy with how the avatar, which is you, acts here, you don't fulfill your potential, and so on, it will make you sick. Eventually you will die if you don't correct your ways. So that's also part of that system. So when people die, there is many reasons. But it's all part of this, what I call, I'll show you a picture to get the idea. You see, this is life. It's basically a rally. And, in a rally, the speed the distance and speed that people can achieve is much higher than if one person was running, right? Because one person, how far can he run? Maybe he can run, 80 kilometers. I know my son once ran 80 kilometers in one day, two marathons, Daniel. But, but if you have this kind of a race where every kilometer or 2 kilometers, you change, then, the runner is always fresh and he can go forever if you have enough people to put in this rally. And life here, life and death, is for that purpose. Because if we never died, we would after a while become stagnant. We would not, we would not have any deadlines. Then what would we do? We just go and lie down on the beach in Hawaii, right? So that's why, death is part of this reality. And again, as I just described, this is how it manifests itself. Okay, and you can see that. And I said it many times, that aging is something that's part of the system. You cannot change it. Science cannot change it. Nobody can change it. Aging will always be there. If we find out one reason, and there will be another reason. If we find that reason, will be another reason. There will always be death, and people will never live over 120. So, even in the Torah, even Abraham or Moses, Moses died exactly when he was 120. So, no, everybody died basically from the past. What will happen in the future, we don't know. That's a part of the uncertainty of the universe. Okay. Anna was asking, also she sent me a message. Oh no, actually that was on YouTube. Why don't we because I said that we are not aware that we have a control of, that we can manifest and we have control to create and change reality. And I think she's asking me, why don't we have control? It's a very valid question, but you have to realize that if we had control, then this reality wouldn't be what it is, right? We would be all gods and everybody would try to create a reality, and I don't think this would work. So how God set up this whole theater, is how he set it up. Since he knew better than anybody else how it's going to work. So the setup and the infrastructure is almost perfect, in my opinion. I don't think that anything works wrong. I think everything works exactly like it was supposed to work. Even when we have climate crisis, all these things are part of the play, part of the show here. All right, another thing that I wanted to talk to you, and this is very practical for you to kind of realize, because it can change or affect your life, is that, and I'll try to describe it. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Crystal. I will try to describe it in a way that it becomes clear. So you see, let's say you have a certain reality, right? You have a job, you have you have your life, you earn enough money, you have a nice place you rent, and everything is fine. And then one day, I don't wish it for any one of you, okay? One day, this whole thing falls apart. You lose your job, or you lose your health, something happens, you can't afford the rent, and very quickly, apparently in North America, nobody has savings for more than like 1 or 2 months to survive without the war, without income. So you become homeless. And, I meet many people here in East Vancouver that this is what happened to them. I like to talk to these people because it's very interesting sometimes, like, to understand. When you look from outside, you make your own assumptions. But when you talk to somebody like that, everybody has a really, really, a real story. This is the real life, right? But what happens, and this is what I want you to be aware of, is that when you shift like this, from this reality to that reality, your observer, which is you, the part of you or the part of your consciousness that judges everything and decides where we are and what's happening and all that, it also goes down with you. So your viewpoint is not the one that you had before you lost your job. You look now at these things from the bottom, not from the top. And because you look from the bottom, you adjust to the situation and you accept it. Because your observer, doesn't know any better. Some people, when they fall like that, the observer part of themselves stays where they was before. And those are the people that recover very quickly, because they can see that this is not their place and this is just a temporary situation, and they don't belong there, and so on and so on. So they will pull themselves out. But the ones that take the observer with them into that sewer, right? That sewer of a life, they usually get stuck there. And for most of them, the only way to get out is they need somebody to act as that observer and give them that angle which will help them. It will like pulling them out. So keep that in mind. That's now, when you move the other way, it's exactly the opposite. Because if you become rich all of a sudden, let's say you win the lottery, right? And your observer doesn't come with you to that high level, and it stays behind where you were, then you will lose all your money and go back there. So here you actually have to do the opposite. You have to pull that observer very quickly to be with you. Okay, so that's something I wanted to touch on. Now, another interesting topic, again, it's very practical, and this comes from observation. And like I said, humanity creates the reality we have. So, if you go into a group of people, you have let's say there is some kind of a meeting or a party or whatever, and these people, let's say it's some kind of a meeting of people that have a certain illness, okay? And this is all they talk about all the tests that they need to do and the things and how the illness affects them and so on and so on and so on. And you are a healthy person. If you go there enough times, you will get that illness. And I'll give you a real proof for that. I researched that a while ago because we had somebody here. She was a rabbi, and his wife died of a stomach cancer. In stomach cancer, apparently there's many types, and she died from a particular type of a cancer. And he, few years later, died from the same cancer. So I said, that doesn't make sense. Cancer is not really contagious. unless we don't know. But I don't think it's contagious. So why would he die from the same cancer? Like, whoa. So people may say, well, maybe you eat the same food. Well, it doesn't really make sense because it's a different person would react in a different way to food. And he lives here, so we all eat the same food. It's not like he lives in some place near a nuclear power station or something. So I went to look on the internet, and I found out that there is hundreds and hundreds of cases like that, where the partner dies after a while from the same cancer that their spouse died from. That really didn't make much sense. And I think that this is actually what we call thoughts are things, right? It's the placebo in reverse. If placebo works that way, why wouldn't it work the other way? There's absolutely no reason why not. So what I'm really, the takeaway from this is stay away from negativity, stay away from these things. Don't get involved. This is very much like pendulums when you get into this. Stay away from it. Just because it can grab you and then you cannot pull out. Okay? Another thing, I think I talked about it, but I'll talk about it again. I think it's very significant that this is the issue of names. I think I did mention it last time, but I'll go on about because I have another thing to add to it. A name has tremendous influence on the personality of a person, right? And I always wondered why, because the name is given. I'm talking about the given name, right? The first name. It's given after the person is born. So I kind of basically disprove myself when I say that you get the personality in that lottery and then comes the name and changes your personality. It doesn't make sense, right? But it does, and I'll tell you why. Because a name usually comes from the past. Many people had that name. If you look at Daniel, or you look at Solomon, or you look at all the names, they have some kind of a history. And what happens, it comes back to this all is one thing, because everything affects everything. And I was showing yesterday that butterfly that flaps its wing in China and creates a tornado in New York City, right? So the name, when it was first given to the person, let's say if you take Daniel, so the first time we have Daniel is in the Old Testament, in the Bible. And that Daniel had a certain character, certain personality. So people later started to give that name based on that personality. They liked that personality. Why would somebody call their son Daniel? Is because... it's funny, I have Daniel here on the screen in front of me. Because they liked that person, that Daniel, for whatever reason. They liked certain, attributes of that person. And then they named their son the same way. And the name carries energy, carries influence on the reality, because it's part of this all is one. So the name Daniel, right? It had already accumulated some attributes from that Daniel that was first named with it. So the second one gets that name, and he starts to also get that, because everything is virtual here. It's very similar to memes. I don't know how many of you know what memes are, but memes are basically entities that are made of a sentence, a word, or and they create a certain reality. Like they become almost like tools that carry their own knowledge and energy and paint a certain picture when you say it. Right? I don't have any in my mind right now, but Murphy's Law, for example, right? It became something that it's only words, but it's a meme. It's something that has a meaning and actually creates a certain environment and reality when you say it. And the names are exactly the same way. I'm just looking here. Looks like I'm getting out of focus for some reason. Let's see if I can fix that. Just give me a second here. Okay, there we go. I have to look into that. You get like too fancy and sophisticated equipment, and then it's very hard to control. So this is why names, over the years, they accumulated. It's like a snowball. It rolls and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, larger. And the name now carries a lot of weight with it. It's a virtual weight. You don't see it, you cannot smell it, but it's there. And that's why sometimes I tell people that speak to me and they have a certain name, I suggest they change that name. Because that name carries, I can see what they are experiencing in life and what they are trying to change, and I can see that name actually is a very strong magnet to pull this kind of problems towards them. Okay, so that's why a name has so much significance, and that's why it affects people even after they got that personality in the lottery. All right, so I'll come now to your questions here. Let me now go to the comments. There we go. So I know that Arjoms, I hope I pronounce it properly, he put a question there before I even started. I saw it on YouTube and he said, and I'll put it up here. Please tell me, how do I get out of the state of being poor and broke? I just want to be not broke. Well, I'm sure that many people can relate to this question. And, I don't have the time here to really analyze it, and I don't know the circumstances, but I can say one thing, which may sound very simplistic, but, the same way you got there, this is how you're going to get out of there. Because you got there by doing certain things or not doing certain things. So if you do the opposite, you look at what you were doing to get there and do something different, then you will not be there. Like nobody puts you there. It's not like somebody standing there and saying, oh, you have to be broke. And if you try to get out, they hit you over the head and say, no, you have to go. It doesn't work like that. It's all in your hands at the end of the day. And like I said, because when you are broke and your observer, the part of you that looks at itself is also there, it doesn't realize that it shouldn't be there. So the first thing you have to do is to pull the part of you that observes your situation out of that place. Put it somewhere, when the rich people are, and then look from there. And you will say, whoa, I shouldn't be here. So that's, again, this is like a very simplistic thing because I don't have time to really take it apart. Linda says, peace and love to all. So I want you to see it. Hello, Shlomo and the gang. My son Eric just sent me a message. Happy Father's Day. All right. I'm just going through all the different there is another Happy Father's Day. I guess you can see it on by yourself too. I'm just looking if there's any questions, but in the meantime, I am going through. Hi, Sabrina. Nice to see you again. Oh. And Amin, I haven't seen you in a while. Okay, I see lots of greetings. Thank you very much. And okay, with regard to last night video, how do we flip the switch to green? Well, as I said in the video, you have to basically disconnect from the desire to have something or to change something. The importance of what you want has to go away, because as long as it's important to you, you cannot switch. That switch can only go there if you are totally neutral, like you don't have preferences in your mind or anything, and you just float in there, and then if you say something, it will actually happen. But you cannot be attached to any emotional desires that are connected to what you're going to ask for. It's a paradox, and I will expand on it much more, because I just started with this video. This is not something that can be done like in one shot. But like I said earlier, first of all, you have to understand why you have that power. Once you have that, then you will figure out how to do it, because it's not the same for everybody. That's why I said everybody has to cross their own T's, because it's not exactly the same. We are all different characters, different people, and we see reality in a different way. But we'll get there. We'll get there. This is an ongoing project, and I think there is enough in there to get you on that track. About the switch people who can uplift it, as I mentioned about the guy who said about the death of his friend. Well, you see, there are certain people that naturally have that switch on at certain times, and they can actually bring that time through their internal system. But not everybody can do it. And what we are trying to do really is to find out what does it take to do that. So in essence, you don't have to be all psychics, but we will have to understand what is it, or there's probably more than one thing that has to be aligned for that switch to go to green. And I just started giving some information, and like I said, it's an ongoing project. Some teach that manifestation works when you are emotionally detached from the outcome, while others, like Neville, yes. It is a contradiction, and I am very, very aware of it. And I think that both extremes work, but only the extremes, nothing in between. Okay, and what I mean by that, I mentioned in my video, for example, those ceremonies that people used to have. They probably still have them in the Amazons, the tribes that live there, that they basically put themselves into a trance, right? And then they are in a position that they can change things. Like, you have to be in a really extreme emotional, like, let's say people that are very desperate and they cry to God with all their heart and all their emotion, and they really, really cry, and they will actually be able to flip that switch, and they will get an outcome. Okay? And that's one extreme. And the other extreme is, like I say, you have to totally be detached. And you actually brought both cases, but it's one of those extremes. And I don't want to talk about the other extreme, because that one is very hard to call it fake. You really have to be in some kind of a, like extreme situation to be able to get to that. And that's what I think Neville is talking about. He, in his personality, from my observation, he had that ability to get very, very deep in that emotional stage, maybe without having a crisis. But he's a very unique person. That's why he is who he is, and that's why we still listening to his videos, reading his books. Not everybody is like him. And that's why I always say, any of those authors, when they come and say something, it works for them. It doesn't mean that it will work for somebody else, because that somebody else has a different personality. And what I am trying to find out is something universal that works for everybody. Okay? If you can heal, can I heal my daughter? Well, that's a hard question. I couldn't tell you here. The answer is yes, but there's many ifs and hows and so on, and I cannot really address it here. So Okay. What about NA? What is your opinion about 12-step groups? I don't know if you're talking about Alcoholic Anonymous I'm not sure what the question is, Chris. But I'll give you something that comes to my mind. What happens when a person who didn't commit really a serious crime and is not a professional criminal ends up in jail for a number of years and sits there with all these criminals? When it comes out, what do you think will happen to that person? In my opinion, most likely will become a real criminal. So I think going to any of these things, if you are one of those criminals, I don't mean criminals, but if somebody is one of those really very, very deep alcoholic, well, maybe it's good for them. But if somebody is not like that and they just, they have the ability to get out by themselves and they don't believe in it and just out of convenience they join one of those groups, it probably only makes it worse for them. Doesn't make it any better. So, that's my take. Again, this is on the fly. I don't have time to analyze it and think about it. So that would be my answer to that. Funny, since I started contemplating changing my name 2 weeks ago, you have been talking about this in your last 2 videos. Well, you see, you changed my reality too. How you pick up a new name? Well, I would say, when you consider a name, you look at a name, then first of all you remember people that have that name, right? And what they are like. Like I know that a name that I looked very frequently was Daniel, and usually Daniels are very serious people. They have a good personality all around, right? They are serious, they are reliable, and so there is. By the way, there's books. I know there are books in Hebrew because the Kabbalah is dealing with that in quite in depth, and they analyze names. Like I read a book like this in Hebrew, and I was actually shocked to see how true it was when they describe names and what it means and what kind of people they are. It was one of the reasons that I came to that conclusion, because when I read the book, it was totally eye-opening. So I'm sure there is books like this in many languages. You can also look at that. And, or maybe you can even talk to me. I could tell you what suits you, because you need to know what personality you have and what do you want to change, right? You don't just pick a name. All right. Okay, there's one more question here. Ocean mist. Oceana mist, actually. It's not ocean mist. Okay, it would be great if you could do a video just about healing another person beside yourself. Just a suggestion. Okay, I guess this is... it shouldn't be a video by itself. It's more of an outcome of other scenarios and ideas and understandings that brings that in. I'm picking up DoorDash order for Dan and Diane. Synchronicity, yeah. All right, my friends. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a nap. And we'll see you next Sunday. And I'm sure that I'll hear from many, many of you, which I do all the time. And if I get enough feedback on this manifestation thing, I already got some very interesting feedback today. I will probably create another video this week and try to move it forward and keep the momentum on it. Okay, so I'll show you this smiley again, because that's what I feel like. And, it's still counting down, so we can count down until I go off. No, but I don't do that. So I wish you all the best, and we'll see you next time, whatever next time is. You're very welcome all, and thank you.